I always talk about it as a mom and pop museum, but it's almost a little bit bigger than that. People still love it when they come. They're quite surprised at what's behind the fences out there. My name's Keith Maidlow. I actually live on Heath Parkway, which is part of what used to be the Heath Farm. So we had a connection right from the beginning. And in 1999, we became volunteers here, and my wife and I have been volunteering ever since. The Heath Farm was started by a man named Clinton Heath. He was a freed slave down in New Bern, North Carolina. So he came up here in 1855. He and his wife worked on the farm until 1894, when he was able to purchase this property and start doing his own farming here for himself. So Clinton had 9 children who lived to maturity. One of them, Bertha Clara Heath, the youngest. Over the years, Bertha, anytime any of her brothers or sisters needed money, she started buying the property and eventually owned all of the original 50 acres. Walter Spradley was Bertha's nephew and also the grandson of Clinton Heath. If you shook hands with Walter Spradley, you were shaking hands with someone who slept in the same bed with a slave, so we were that close to slavery. He actually lived here at the farm from the time he was about a year old until he was 11. Walter believed in predestiny, basically. He was the one who was supposed to come back here in 1999 and do this project, because he actually was the only grandson who ever lived on the property. So those are the key players. Clinton Heath, who was the patriarch of the farm, Bertha Clara Heath, who was the one who had the vision to turn the farm into a museum, and then Walter Spradley was the third player who took Bertha's dream and just blew it out of the water. He made it far greater than Bertha would have ever thought this was going to be. Walter, again, he had a vision. It started out with some gray sheds that he was going to set up his family history in, and then something happened, and what it wound up being was a woman named Gertrude Neilinger had another museum called the Spy House Museum. Walter made an overture to her putting up a building so that that would house her collection. Come to find out, only a couple of days after she had won her court case, she passed away. Nobody else wanted to do the project, so all the things that she had were legally transferred over to Walter Spradley. Now he had another larger collection of someone else's history, and it was a far greater. It was a Middletown history. It was a Bayshore community history that he had. Walter always kind of put together something new each year. Each year there was a new building, there was a new project. On the back of the building here is an 88-foot mural depicting the Middletown train station back at the turn of the century with Walter's grandfather as the crossing guard. Subsequently, after Walter passed 2 years ago in 2014, we actually had the artist come back and put Walter in the mural. One of the smaller sheds has been converted into a bee museum, but outside that building there is a beekeeper who actually has 4 or 5 large hive communities that they maintain all summer, and then they take the honeys from those hives and they make a local honey that they produce it, and we get to sell it here at the farm. Aunt Bert had a fairly large book collection of biographies and autobiographies, mostly of Black history. And so Walter wanted to put together a building that commemorated her love of books and Black history. And we now have we can't call it a library, but we have a book repository. The New Jersey 3rd Civil War Reenacting Group comes here every year. They used to spend the night, but they put on demonstrations, and we used to be quite often in the newspaper, you know, for promoting it and then afterwards. So there's a lot of things that Walter kept thinking about and kept doing, and that's probably the one thing that's going to be missed going forward. Walter became my best friend just because of who he was. But his enthusiasm kept everybody coming back, kept the Civil War reenactors coming back, the Girl Scouts, other volunteers. The programs it was so alive, and his enthusiasm for his family spilled over to everybody. So it's not going away. Well, I'm trying to say it's not going away in the very near future. We have a willingness to keep it going for as long as people want to keep coming, and will continue to do that, I think.